Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Etiquettes of Salaat. Part 12. First Discourse, Chapter 11. Curing the wandering mind in order to acquire focus of the heart. In the previous chapter, Imam started to enter the practical protocols involved in how to acquire focus of the heart. He traced all the causes that lead to that mental disarray and those impediments within into two: the imaginative faculty, be it through the external sources or within, and love of the world. Two main causes that lead the mind to wander. In the first, the mind by essence and innately, it's very loose, it's very escaping, it has to be tamed. In the second, the love of the world is the impediment, and that too has to be cured. Now, Imam starts. He says, each of the outer, the five senses, and inner, the imaginative and rational faculties of the soul, all these faculties, be it the external senses or the internal senses, they can be trained and disciplined. Usually one can't focus and see a particular thing for long periods of time without blinking, or one can't see the sun's disk without blinking, for example. However, by means of certain invalid, illegitimate disciplines that some people carry out for certain agendas, this can be acquired. One can look at a certain thing without blinking, or one can even see the disk of the sun without blinking. Or some people can hold their breaths via training the soul for long periods of time through these disciplines. All this is possible. Now, another faculty which can be controlled is the imaginative faculty. Before training it, this faculty of the mind is extremely wandering in nature. So much so, if one were to calculate the transitions it makes, they are so much that with the slightest link it jumps, from one image to another image, makes up its own image, keeps on working, always at play. But there are so much that some people believe that controlling this faculty is amongst the impossible deeds. It's impossible, they say. But Imam says this is not so. With proper disciplining, training, and putting the time and the effort, one can in fact tame the imaginative faculty, which innately, is so escaping and loose and wandering in nature. And one can imprison at one's will this imaginative faculty so it doesn't move from A to B to C to D and so on and so forth for however long one desires, even for hours. One can do this. Now, the main route for accomplishing this taming of the imaginative faculty is, now here, in one paragraph now, Imam is going to speak about it. After he speaks about this one paragraph, he goes off again at a tangent in relation to something else. He doesn't give the answers all, in one piece. Now, there are wisdoms behind this. He wants people to grow with him here. You have to read everything. You have to go through the preliminaries. He gives it piece by piece, morsel after morsel. But this paragraph now is very important. It's key, because now this is something practical now. It's the first practical step that one does after undergoing all those preliminary steps. So what is the main route for taming the imaginative faculty? Because before he said this imaginative faculty, either through external things and the external senses, or even if there was nothing outside you and there was no impediment to the external senses, even within you alone, even if it's a dark room, you hear nothing, you smell nothing, but even alone, because of its innate nature, this imaginative faculty, it needs to be tamed. How? The answer? He says, doing the contrary. Doing the contrary. Now, this has to be explained, of course. It's still ambiguous. What does this mean? When attending to do the Salat, one preserves the imagination during the Salat and imprisons the imagination within the framework of the Salat. And whenever this imaginative mind is about to exit from one's fists, i.e. away from Salaat, one returns to the Salaat. Now, just in case that's still not clear to you, this has to be explained. He says, in Salaat, in every movement, posture, invocation, ruku, and so on and so forth, one must be attentive to those components. From component to component, you have to fix yourself, the mind, on those components, observing them carefully so that the imagination does not self-will anything. And whenever you focus on X component of the Salaat, you have to focus on it. Just think about it. Whenever the mind drifts off from the ruku and the esoteric meanings of the ruku, when the mind drifts off from the sajda and the esoteric meanings of the sajda, when the mind drifts off the form, one verse, for example, in Surah Al-Hamd, when the mind is drifting off, you focus again on the meaning of that verse in Surah Al-Hamd. Every part of Salaat has external, superficial and esoteric dimensions and meanings. This book is called Adab Salaat. In every component of Salaat, it's going to go through in succeeding chapters through all the esoteric dimensions of every single movement and posture that one does in Salaat. You have to fix yourself on the meanings of those actions in the beginning. Just fix yourself. Whenever the imaginative mind takes you away from the meaning of that action or posture or statement or formula or verbal component of the Salaat, whenever the imaginative faculty is taking you away and you're wandering off, go back to that meaning. If you don't know the meaning of the posture and that action, well, what are you going back to? It's going to be problematic. That's why we have an external Salaat with external components. It's a source of our attention, so we can be attentive to it to start off with. Whenever the imaginative mind wanders, go back to that posture again that you were doing and you're in the process of doing, and divert all your attention to that. Whenever the mind takes you away, go back. It takes you away, keep on going back. And that's why you have to know the esoteric dimensions of the components of the Salaat. Otherwise, what are you going back to? If it's something very superficial, well, the mind will wander very easily. Doing the contrary, go back, keep on going back. Now, this may seem very difficult at first, you observing it very carefully, and every time the imagination wants to take you to wander off, you're going back to that meaning. This may seem very difficult at first, but with time, patience, endeavor, the taming will appear stronger and stronger. The success in your disciplining the mind will become stronger and stronger. How do you discipline? How do you tame the imaginative faculty? Go back to the meaning. Whenever it wanders, you're wandering. Go back. But it seems difficult in the beginning, but with patience, endeavor, you succeed more and more. It's all in proportion to how patient you are, your endeavor, and the timing and effort you put into it. Imam says, one must not have too high expectations to start off with. At first, one may succeed doing this. Doing what? That imprisoning the imaginative mind in only that framework of Salaat, imprisoning the imaginative mind within the components of Salaat. You may succeed at first only to do this for 1/10 of the Salaat, Imam says. So let's say if Salaat is, let's say, you do 2 units of Salaat. I mean, I'm just using these numbers for simplicity's sake. You do 2 units of Salaat in 2 minutes, 120 seconds, for example. 1/10 is 12 seconds. At first, you may only be able to fix on that component of Salaat and not allow the mind to wander off for 12 seconds. Can you do that? At least for 1/10 of your Salaat being accepted. In the beginning, it's only 1/10 of the Salaat. For some people, it may be only 1/20 of the Salaat, only for 6 seconds, for example. They can do this. Only for 6 seconds they can imprison this. In the beginning, it's like that. And then you need practice. You have to endeavor. Whenever you wander off, fix on the meaning of that component. Fix yourself on the component. Keep on coming back to the component again that you're active in, you're doing right now in the Salaat. Mind wanders, go back. Keep on going back. It goes to the bazaar, go back. It goes to the university place, go back. It comes to tonight, a suitor's coming, go back. Keep on going back. My children, go back. My wife, this, that and the other. Remember many sessions ago, I can't remember which chapter it was, that those who have this love for of the children, for example, if they love their children and lawlessly, they have this love only for the children. When they become free from the preoccupations during the day and they're now free and they have time for Salat, when they're doing Salat, all they think is the children now, because children is their beloved, the work is their beloved, the university is their beloved. They just want to rise along the ranks of the university. All they think of these certificates, or they want to go into the hoseh, the seminaries, lawlessly. They want to be a name for themselves. They want to get pass marks in certain examinations. There's no Allah. This imaginative mind wanders. Go back. You're in Salat now. Go back to the component you were doing in Salat. Fix yourself on the meaning. You have to start off like this. Now, with accompanying deliberation, Imam says, over the importance of this aim to acquire focus, this helps one to strive harder and succeed more and more to acquire focus of the heart and having a firm grip over its reins, all in one's hands. So one should never be in despair during this process. It takes time. Despair, Imam ends in this paragraph saying, it leads to spiritual degradation. Hope is the key to acquiring perfection. And he stops there, and now he's speaking about something else now. He does it very delicately though. I mean, it's not totally mutually exclusive, but he's not going to speak about how to acquire focus of the heart now. Huzur qalb. He's done that. He's done 50% of it actually. He's told us now 50% of the way. Practical instructions. How to acquire huzur qalb. He's told us now. How? Taming the imaginative mind. How? Whenever it wanders, go back to the component of Salat. Wanders, go back. You may start with 6 seconds every 2 units, only 6 seconds. Tomorrow it may be 6 seconds. The day after it may be 6.1 seconds. The next day 6.2 seconds. You keep on doing it. 6.3 seconds, 6.4 seconds, 6.5 seconds. Just make sure it doesn't go to 3 seconds one day. Keep on going, slowly but surely. That 6 seconds will become 60 seconds, even if it takes 2 years. It doesn't matter. Then that 60 seconds will become 120 seconds one day. And that's the Salat we want. The huzur qalb has been acquired now. That's half the battle. But now let's go through the rest of the chapter. There are some very interesting points Imam mentions. Imam, word by word, whatever he says, it's based on a world of experience, a world of reading books and reading the traditions of the Ahlul Bayt, reading the verse of the Quran. It's all the Quran. Imam is allowing us to benefit from this treasure. Then Imam says, the main issue here is we don't feel the need for acquiring focus of the heart. We haven't acknowledged wholeheartedly that the capital to our salvation in the hereafter forever is Salat. We haven't understood this. It hasn't sunk in. We still see it as a duty or a kind of imposition over us. Loving something, loving X for example, emanates from perceiving the results of X. Once we acknowledge the results of X, do we start loving X? When people love the world, it's because they have easily felt the need of the world and have perceived the results of the dunya, and their hearts have developed an affinity towards it with their faith. Wholeheartedly, they've acquired this affinity. Hence, in relation to acquiring the worldly life, people aren't in need of encouragement and advice. You don't need to advise people, go after the dunya, because they've easily understood it. They've seen it surrounding them. They've seen the benefits easily, and they go after it. And then they acquire this affinity towards it. Then Imam says, an interesting angle he's taken here, attacking a certain perspective that some people may have. Imam says, those who claim that the Holy Prophet's mission comprised two dimensions, the worldly dimension and the hereafterly dimension, and they view this as an achievement of Islam, an achievement and privilege for the legislator, the Holy Messenger, and the perfection for prophethood, the idea of them bringing this double dimension, this bi-dimensional idea that they bring, that they're inviting the worldly dimension and the hereafterly dimension. These people are uninformed of the essence of religion, and these people are void in relation to the objective of prophethood. They haven't understood the essence of religion, and they haven't understood the essence of prophethood. Inviting towards the dunya is totally out and mutually exclusive to the objective of the prophets, Imam says. The instinct of shahwa, the instinct of adab, this conquering nature of ours, and the inner and outer shaitans, all are enough to invite one to the dunya. They're enough. There's no need for prophets to come with books to enter such a program. That's within our fitrah. Executing shahwa and ghadab does not need either the Quran or prophets. In order, to execute them, you don't need the Holy Prophet. You don't need the Quran. That animal thing is within you already. You don't need prophets to come and say, I invite you to shahwa. I invite you to ghadab. No. Or I invite you to the dunya. Rather, the prophets would dissuade the people from the dunya and would limit absolute shahwa and absolute ghadab, and they would define carefully set limited forms of shahwa and ghadab, not inviting people to the dunya. So prophets would advise the people not to spend, acquire or consume money in any way that they want, or they would advise the people not to execute shahwa by doing anything. They bring marriage, they say you have to marry. Marriage has been carefully defined. So they are here, the prophets are here, the books are here to define and limit liberty in the absolute sense. Islam isn't for liberty in the absolute sense. If it was, why bring all the books? Why all the prophets here? If it was only to be, if we were to believe in absolute liberty, there would be no need for prophets or books. So here, the books, the prophets are here to define and they limit liberty in the absolute sense, not to invite people to the dunya. The spirit of inviting to business is because when we see this in Islam, it's tantamount to limiting business or preventing the acquisition of invalid capital. That's the spirit of inviting. The spirit of inviting to marriage is tantamount to the preventing of corrupt lifestyles and behavior, and to prevent this absolute liberty of shahwa. So the prophets weren't against good and bad forms of shahwa altogether. No. They weren't against shahwa in the absolute sense, i.e. they weren't against shahwa, be it the good forms of shahwa or the bad forms of shahwa. They weren't against that, because such a stance would not be on a par with the perfect order of the cosmos. No. But they came to delineate and define and set the boundaries. In short, Imam then says in the next paragraph, we feel the need towards the dunya. That's why we strive for it with energy, with no fatigue. But this need is necessary in relation to the hereafter and everlasting salvation. But we don't have that need. We don't feel the need. We don't acquire the need. But we do so for the dunya though. Now, if salat was seen, if really one came to this conclusion, that salat is the key to all this, we would have made fatigue-less efforts towards the prerequisites of salat and the conditions to fulfill a proper salat, namely focus of the heart. But the need is not there. We haven't come to that conclusion that salat is the key to all this. In the earlier chapters, through deliberation, through the traditions and the text, one has to come to this. Right now, though, predominating over us, Imam says, is a staticity that has reached the depths of our faith. Otherwise, if what all prophets and sages have advised us would even lead us to deem it probable that there is in fact a need to acquire focus of the heart, we would have been expected to have made much more an effort. But the problem is, we don't even deem it probable that there is a need for this focus of the heart. Why don't we deem it probable? But how, Imam says, but how unfortunate it is that the Iblisi forces at play have permeated within, preventing the ears of the heart to listen to the truths put forward by the saints and lovers. Our ears are on a par with the ears of animals. The Prophet's words don't cross over into our heart. We're deaf in the spiritual sense. We're blind. And we remain with the physical ears. Chapter 50, verse 37, there is indeed an admonition in that for one who has a heart or gives ear, being attentive. This ear isn't the physical ear. And then Imam ends, also not wholly related to this discussion. He says, one of the important duties for the traveller to Allah and the striver in Allah's way is that during their endeavours they don't rely upon themselves and they don't be attentive innately. One of the important duties for the traveller to Allah and the striver in Allah's way is that during their endeavours they have to do two things. They shouldn't rely upon themselves. They shouldn't have that self-reliance at all, something which the West puts forward in great esteem. And secondly, they have to be attentive innately towards the cause of causes, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to seek from Allah immunity and preservation from all evil. Go before Allah, really want it from Him. And to rely upon Allah's help, to be tranquil before Allah, wanting only from Him, and to be serious in reforming one's states and seeking Allah, because there is no refuge but Him. وصلى الله على محمد وعلى الطاهرين.